Welcome to the deep dive.
Mhm.
Our mission is to take these massive, complex stories, the ones that really reshape our markets and legal systems, and just distill them down into the essential knowledge you can actually use. And today, we are wading right into the epicenter of the big tech legal wars.
Yeah.
We're talking about the landmark federal court decision that protected Meta's, its colossal social media empire.
Right.
This is the ruling that made sure Instagram and WhatsApp stayed firmly under that Meta umbrella, even after years of regulators trying to force this massive corporate breakup.
And this deep dive is really a shortcut to understanding the why. We've gone through the court filings, the market analysis, and this ruling, it's more than just a win for Meta. It really defines the current limits of antitrust law in, our digital economy.
So if regulators can't prove a monopoly here.
Then the bar for challenging any other tech giant just got a whole lot higher.
Okay, so let's unpack this. It's been a long legal saga. Let's trace the timeline of the FTC's, the Federal Trade Commission's campaign. The whole fight really kicked off in 2020.
Right. That's when the FTC filed this huge lawsuit. And it was all built on the allegation that Meta had this systematic anti-competitive strategy. They called it buy or bury.
That phrase, buy or bury, that's so important here.
It's crucial. It means Meta didn't just buy companies for growth. The allegation was that they did it specifically to eliminate competitive threats.
So if a rival was getting too strong,
You either buy them or you find a way to bury them, maybe by, cutting off their access to Facebook's platform.
the two big targets here, the ones that are really the foundation of Meta's empire beyond the main Facebook app.
Instagram and WhatsApp.
Instagram, which they bought back in 2012 for about $1 billion,
Mm-hmm.
and then WhatsApp in 2014 for a whopping $19 billion.
Mm.
The FTC's argument was basically that Meta's dominance today comes directly from those two preemptive moves.
Exactly. And the evidence they brought forward, it focused a lot on internal emails, communications that suggested Zuckerberg and his team saw these younger companies as a real threat.
I remember reading about one where Zuckerberg supposedly called Instagram a rival that needed to be neutralized.
Yes. That was the kind of thing the FTC thought was their smoking gun. They thought that would win the case.
The stakes here were just enormous. The FTC wasn't asking for a fine.
No, not at all.
They wanted what they called an unprecedented action. They wanted to force Meta to break up. The legal term is divestiture.
Right. They wanted the court to literally mandate that Instagram and WhatsApp become independent companies again.
The idea being you could sort of rewind the clock.
You try to restore the market to what it might have been if Meta hadn't absorbed these competitors. For the FTC, it wasn't about punishment. It was about making sure the market could, innovate in the future.
It really put you in a tough spot, though. I mean, think about it. If you're a regulator, you see this evidence of anti-competitive intent from years ago. But now, the company is a global giant.
It's a massive challenge.
So here's a question for you listening. If you were in charge of fixing this, knowing how disruptive a breakup would be, what penalty would you even consider appropriate to restore some genuine competition?
It's a tough one. Now, let's pivot to Meta's defense, because it was extremely effective.
Right.
Their lawyers argued that these acquisitions were just strategic investments. They were about making the products better, not about creating a monopoly.
And Zuckerberg testified to that, right?
He did. He repeatedly said that WhatsApp and Instagram became huge successes because Meta poured billions into them, integrated them, scaled them. They argued Instagram in 2012 was just a small photo app. It might have just fizzled out without Facebook's resources.
And this gets to the part that really muddies the waters for the FTC.
The historical context.
Exactly. We have to remember that both of those purchases, Instagram and WhatsApp, they actually got regulatory approval from federal authorities when they happened.
And that's the heart of the legal problem here. How can the government come back years later and challenge something its own agencies already approved?
It's a huge contradiction.
Meta basically said, look, you approved it back then. We spent a decade and billions of dollars building on that approval. You can't just change the rules of the game now.
That feels like an almost impossible hurdle for the FTC to clear. And Meta didn't just lean on that, did they? They also argued that the market today is super competitive.
Yes, they hammered that point home. They talked about facing fierce competition from all these emerging platforms, which, perfectly set the stage for the court's final decision.
It forced the judge to look at the here and now.
Precisely. Not the market as it was in 2012, but as it is right now.
Okay, so this is where it gets really fascinating. The ruling itself from Judge Boasberg, he flat out denied the request for divestiture.
Yeah, this wasn't some small setback for the FTC. It was a categorical rejection of their main goal.
And the core legal reason was.
Insufficient evidence. The court ruled that the FTC failed to prove that Meta currently holds monopoly power in the social networking market.
So past intent doesn't matter if the present reality is different.
Exactly. Antitrust law isn't designed to punish things that happened a decade ago if the market has already fixed itself, so to speak.
You know, the part I found most memorable about the ruling was its philosophical framing. The judge didn't just stick to the law books.
Oh, the quote.
He quoted the Greek philosopher Heraclitus. He said, "No man can step into the same river twice."
That quote is the perfect metaphor for this ruling. It's the whole key. The judge used it to say that the social media market, the river, is always changing.
Constantly in flux.
The users, the content, the competitors, the landscape of today is completely different from 2012. You can't judge a company based on a market that, doesn't even exist anymore.
So it sounds like the FTC was fighting a battle about the past, but the court was only interested in the present.
That is the pivotal legal takeaway. It's what's known as the temporal requirement. You have to prove ongoing or imminent harm under the Sherman Act.
So past monopoly power isn't enough.
It's not. The
Yeah.
court basically said Meta might have dominated the 2012 river, but today's river has too many other powerful currents.
And the result was just unambiguous. The court rejected the breakup. Meta got this massive legal shield.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, the ruling was just deeply rooted in the reality of the market today. I mean, the transformation since 2020 alone has been irreversible.
And the number one piece of evidence for that transformation has to be TikTok.
Without a doubt. The sources all emphasize TikTok's explosive rise. We're not talking about a little growth here. Its user base just surged. It fundamentally changed how people behave online, especially younger users.
I mean, when the FTC first filed a complaint, TikTok was around, but it wasn't the giant it is today.
Not even close. Since then, it's become the undisputed leader in short-form video. The data shows that for a lot of users, especially Gen Z, TikTok is now their primary source of entertainment. That directly cuts into the time people would have spent on Instagram or Facebook.
And it's not just TikTok, right? Google's YouTube is still this absolute monster in long-form video.
Absolutely, and we've seen market analysts reporting that user engagement on Meta's apps has been declining as competition gets more intense. I mean, Meta had to invent Reels just to try and keep up.
That whole dynamic forced the court to see that the lines between these platforms are just dissolving.
Yes. The ruling acknowledged that. The distinction between a traditional social network and a multimedia content platform is, well, it's basically gone. Is TikTok a social network or a media platform?
What about YouTube?
Right. And if you define the market broadly enough to include all of digital attention, Meta's supposed dominance starts to look a lot smaller.
That blurring of the lines makes it so hard for regulators to even define the market they're trying to police. It seems like the market just moved too fast for the legal system.
It did.
So we want to hear from you on this. Given TikTok's rise and all these pressures, do you think Meta still holds a monopoly in social media? Or has the market just fundamentally changed? Let us know what you think in the comments.
So moving on to the aftermath, the reaction to the ruling was intense. The official response from the FTC was that they were deeply disappointing. Their spokespeople were pretty clear. They were concerned about how the courts are applying antitrust law to modern tech.
It really kicked up a political firestorm in Washington, too.
It did. And on the other side, of course, Meta was quick to claim victory. Jennifer Newstead, their chief legal officer, put out a statement saying, quote, "This ruling recognizes the fierce competition that exists in the marketplace."
So for them, it was a total validation of their strategy.
Completely. And this victory for Meta, it stands in really sharp contrast to the struggles of their big tech rivals.
That's a great point. It's not like every big tech company is winning these cases.
Not at all. And that contrast is key. I mean, look at Google. They've faced multiple defeats, especially in Europe, for illegal monopolies in search and digital ads. The courts there found the market boundaries were much clearer.
And then you have Apple, which is dealing with the Department of Justice over its App Store.
Right, and that's a different kind of case. It's about control over an ecosystem, not a past acquisition.
And Amazon is always under investigation for its marketplace practices.
Always. So what we're seeing is that the definition of monopoly power in this digital age is just far from settled. Meta's win was really unique because they successfully argued that the current market competition absolved them.
So what's the big takeaway here? For you, the learner, trying to get a quick handle on this, Meta has this major legal protection now for its business structure. They pledged to cooperate with regulators, but you have to imagine the pressure is not going away.
No, but the conclusion from this case is that Meta's victory just highlights how hard it is to prove a monopoly in a market that transforms at this kind of speed. When they're dealing with, evolving standards.
The court basically said traditional antitrust law, which was designed for, like, railroads or oil companies.
Exactly, for slower industrial era companies. It has to adapt incredibly quickly to account for something like the sudden rise of a TikTok. Otherwise, it just becomes obsolete. It's fascinating. The court essentially said, your evidence of what happened in the past doesn't matter if the market is competitive enough right now.
Precisely. And that leads to our final provocative thought for you to think about. How should our courts and regulators balance this?
What do you mean?
Well, if they intervene too late, a monopoly could do massive damage to the market. But if they intervene too early, they risk stifling the very innovation and growth they're trying to protect.
That is the core tension, isn't it? It defines this whole era of tech regulation. And it's clear the fight over market power is going to continue across all the major platforms. There are still some significant battles ahead.
No doubt about it.
We really encourage you to join the discussion. Share your perspective on how regulators can adapt their power to the incredible pace of market innovation. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.